There's also a big story within the Conservative Party this week about the honeytrap sext scandal. There's an MP at the centre of it, William Wragg. Let's talk to James Heale now. He's political correspondent at The Spectator. James, thank you for joining us this morning. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Peter.
William Wragg has apologised for this. First of all, I want you to sort of talk us through it a little bit. Some people might have heard a bit about it but don't know the whole thing. He has apologised. Jeremy Hunt said it was a sort of courageous apology. But in other circumstances, surely he would have resigned.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was about someone who he met on Grindr, the gay dating app, who then subsequently, it appears, got something like compromising messages or images of Will Wragg, which were then used to try and extort the numbers of fellow colleagues, which Will Wragg handed some of those over. And then those numbers were used to target around 12 people within Westminster. We believe a couple of MPs might have replied to them. One of those targeted was a serving minister, but there were political journalists and staff members in Parliament as well. And then subsequently on Thursday evening, Will Wragg did come out and admit to the Times newspaper that he was the one responsible for handing them over. And now in the last couple of hours or so, it's emerged that Dr. Luke Evans was another MP targeted. And I suppose the two elements of this, one of which is Will Wragg's innocence in being a victim of this. Everyone can understand that, being a victim of revenge porn and blackmail, obviously there's a lot of sympathy for that. But on the other hand, he did crumble to blackmail. And I've seen those who are critics of Will Wragg, such as Nadine Dorries today, contrasting Dr. Luke Evans' decision to hand out to go to the police straight away and make a note of this with Will Wragg's action. So I think that there are some calls in the Conservative Party for Will Wragg to face some kind of action over this, potentially losing the whip. But for now, the government is standing by them, and I suspect it's because they don't really, in part, want to kind of get to a situation a bit like 2 years ago, Neil Parish, when he was caught watching pornography in Parliament, where you get a kind of another by-election, which would be obviously Conservative to lose.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. There's political considerations as well. James, we're going to come back to you to talk about the Gaza row in the Conservative Party in a minute, but we've got Bob Seeley now, who's a Conservative MP for the Isle of Wight. Bob, thank you for joining us this morning. I appreciate you joining us on a Saturday morning. I want to ask you just one question about the honeytrap scandal, and then I want to get into the much more important issue of arms to Gaza, just because we've been talking to James Heale about this. So, I mean, what do you think should happen to Will Wragg, the MP who was giving other MPs details to this blackmailer by the sound of things?
Look, it's not great. He didn't give that many, and he's come out and apologised, and he said he was weak and foolish. So I think when you're being blackmailed, the important thing actually is to encourage people to come forward and just say this is happening, rather than people face censure. Because I think in future, if we come down like a ton of bricks on Will, I think other people who get themselves into a silly situation may find it more difficult to come forward. So actually the important thing is that he's come forward and he said, I'm sorry. I mean, it's pretty easy to find people's telephone numbers as it is. I mean, if anyone wanted to find my number, they probably search enough on the internet and they will come across it, before. So I find that slightly bizarre that this person was trying to find telephone numbers when actually they could probably do that quite easily in other ways. So yeah.